Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? I hope you're doing fine. I'm doing okay today. Don't know about everybody else, but I'm doing okay. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about flat earthers, and I'll be talking about something I usually don't talk about. I don't do this anymore, politics, a little bit of politics. It's going to be mostly physics, but I'm going to be talking about um, conspiracies. But conspiracies as they relate to science, physics, right? And I'd like to start by stating what this site is about. I've got some people there who claim, put some comments, and they said that they've been following me for some time, but they don't seem to know what this site is about. So I think we should start there so that I don't waste your time, right? I mean, hopefully you're in the right place. Okay, so let's start. Let's start with what this site is about. This site is about this. If I can get it up there. There it goes. Uh, we define science as rational explanations. Okay? Science is divided into two parts, philosophy and physics. Philosophy deals with concepts, physics deals with objects. Philosophy seeks reasons and purpose. That's what it tries to explain. And physics tries to explain causes and mechanisms. And then to your right, you'll see the foundations of physics. We start with the golden principle. Physics requires an object. You cannot do physics without an object. People like to do physics without objects. They move, they transfer energy, they vibrate fields, they wave the wave, and those are unacceptable as objects in physics. That's okay in religion. It's in the religion of mathematical physics specifically. They're not good in physics. And so we define those terms there. Those form the foundations, the cornerstones of physics. Something is that which has shape, and nothing is that which doesn't have shape. Okay? And then the other important word there is exist. Physics is the science of existence. Physics only studies that which exists. Okay? Now, why am I mentioning all this to start out with? Well, again, they put a couple comments. Shows that these people don't understand what this site is about. So I don't want to waste their time, so it's better to state this up front. Here's the first comment that I received. One of them, says, I've been following you for the past 2.5 years, and lately you've really backpedaled. Okay? You don't even know if gravity exists, yet you are invoking it to explain your idea of the universe. Now, how's that for a comment? And someone answered it. I'm surprised you are familiar with Bill and you're using statements like know if gravity exists and terms like prove. He beat me to it. Whoever it is, smart guy, yeah. Apparently he knows what this site is about. The other guy doesn't. So I don't know how he could follow me for 2.5 years and not know that we don't use the word know, we don't use the word prove. And when you say exists, you can't say that gravity exists because gravity is a concept. And in physics, only objects can exist. And let me put that definition up there again so that you get it straight in your head. These are not definitions I created overnight. I mean, it took a long time to develop these set of definitions. So anyone who wants to challenge them, hey, you're welcome. I've got a lot of experience on these words, okay? And so the first one is there at the bottom, lower right, you see exist. Physical presence. You need an object in physics, right? In science. In religion, in ordinary speech, we say love exists. In physics, you cannot say that. You cannot say gravity exists. You cannot say energy exists. You cannot say a field exists. There are no such physical objects. You cannot say a wave exists. You cannot say plasma exists. Okay, none of those words qualify as an object. And for that, to know what an object is, you go up that list and go to the word something. So you see the synonyms there, object, thing, anything, body, structure, entity, medium. All those words are synonyms. So it's got to have shape. And none of those words have shape, and none of those are standalone, static objects. Okay? So you can't say gravity exists because gravity is a concept. So it's irrational to say gravity exists for the purposes of physics, for the purposes of science. In ordinary speech, we say a lot of stuff. We say a poem exists. Intelligence exists. Not in science, not in physics. In physics, it has to be an object. If God wants to exist, his first condition, he's got to be an object. Sorry, God, you got to be an object. And if he looks like me, a human with arms, head, etc., that's not sufficient. He's got to have location. Otherwise, he doesn't exist. Okay, so God exists pursuant to the definition of exist. That's how it works in science, okay? We don't say, I believe in God, I don't believe in God, maybe God exists. Now, we don't say that in science. In science, it's straightforward. If God is an object and God has location, his chest has a distance from my chest, God exists by definition. I don't have to believe or disbelieve. He exists by definition. God's always, anyways, an assumption. God is not a theory. Okay. This fellow mentioned something else there that I wanted to comment on. And let's see, put that back up there. It says, if gravity exists, yet he says, you don't know if gravity exists. Okay. Yeah, and we had that issue with the Flatearthers the other day. And so let's look at gravity according to Flatland. The Flatlanders. Let's see what they have. Okay, here we have it. This is a fellow I looked up. Yeah, he's, I guess, a countryman of mine. He's from Argentina, I think. That's what he sounded like. Anyways, his name is Lenny Leonard. And he did a little video called Gravity Doesn't Exist. So it caught my attention. I said, well, this might be a good video to comment on, considering that this guy said, you haven't proved that gravity exists. Well, first thing I think his name should be changed to Looney. Looney Leonard would be better. I think this guy's off his rocker. Okay, that's what I think. And the only thing I want to point out on his entire discussion, because he never showed why gravity doesn't exist. He just talked and talked and talked, never showed why gravity doesn't exist, at least in that video. Maybe there's a part 2 that I missed or something, I don't know. But I just want to focus on 2 things. On the left-hand side, you'll see marked in red. I marked those in red. And on the right side, they're in green. On the left side, you see the letter G at the top, that little G. And that stands for the gravitational acceleration. Whereas on the right-hand side, you see the letter A for acceleration. And essentially what he was comparing was Newton's gravitational law against Newton's second law of motion, okay? Left to right. And he said that these are equal, essentially, He says there's no difference moving sideways as moving downwards. In other words, the acceleration of gravity would be, if you accelerate 9.8 meters per second squared downwards, it's the same thing as if you accelerate 9.8 meters per second square sideways. That's essentially was his argument, the one that I'm going to be analyzing. Okay, that's the one I was interested in. Well, I hate to say that it's not true. Okay, he's comparing apples and oranges, just like every mathematician on Earth since Newton. Okay, and why? And I'll tell you why. To a mathematician, it doesn't matter what he measures. He can be measuring distance, or he could be measuring length. In fact, if you look up the words, you'll find that length is defined in terms of distance, and distance in terms of length, just about everywhere. And so it doesn't matter if he's measuring, like I said in a Quora article, which I recently wrote, whether he's measuring the size of a turtle, the length of a turtle, or the distance between 2 elephants. To him, that qualitative difference is not important. He just has to unroll the measuring tape any which way he looks at that. And what is the problem? Well, the problem is he's not measuring neither distance nor length of physics. What he's measuring is distance traveled. Okay? He's unrolling the measuring tape, one way of doing it. Another one is putting tiles. Another one is clocking it, right? Then dividing by the seconds. But he's unrolling the measuring tape, okay, from A to B. That's what he's doing, from one location to another. And here I put it in a little synthesis. Okay, here you have Newton's force law, second law. Okay, force equals mass times acceleration. As you can see, I framed the letter A, and the letter A is acceleration. It's equal to the change in velocity, in violet there, over a change in time. And what is that little v, that velocity? Well, it's equal to distance over time, or you can say displacement over time. It's a long story to tell you the difference between them. Let's just use the word distance. So what is that distance? Well, that's the distance traveled by one object. The baseball traveled from A to B. That's not the same distance as the one in Newton's gravitational law, which is a static distance. It's just separation between two objects. In this case, I just put it from the surfaces. It's really to the center of the earth and to the center of the ball, but that's irrelevant for what I'm trying to say here. The issue is that mass times mass 1 times mass 2 divided by distance squared means that you're going to look at the distance, at the separation between two objects. That distance is not the same thing as the distance traveled in Newton's second law. And there's no mathematician on earth that ever discovered this. So they use the word distance, and then they set one equation equal to the other, and they do all these fancy things which are pretty great in mathematics, but they're terrible for physics, because physics deals with qualitative issues. And so no, these are not the same distances that these people are comparing. They're comparing apples and oranges. The distance of physics, separation between two objects. That's distance. It's a qualitative thing. Mathematicians can't use it. We don't care, because we don't measure distance in physics. Distance simply means separation. That's all it means, separation between two objects. Length is the continuous matter of an object, of the table, from one edge to the other. Again, we don't measure. We don't put meters. We don't use meters in physics, okay? Because we're not going to be describing. We're going to try to explain something. And so these people are saying that they represent physics, but they can't tell the difference between a static difference, a separation between two objects, and the distance traveled by one object, which is the difference between those two. And that takes us to the principle of equivalence, analyzed by Einstein. I'm not going to get into that right now. I did in a past video, if you look it up, you'll find it somewhere. I did the principle of equivalence, so you can look that up. Anyways, why is that important? Well, see, here we have the version of the rope model. And what am I saying? I'm saying if you have an atom that belongs to an elephant, a hydrogen atom, we're going to just go simple here. And we have an atom that belongs to a balloon, and they have the same distance from the center of mass of the Earth. Those two atoms will fall at the same time. They drift. That's the correct term. They're not really pulled, they drift. Okay, they drift, and as they drift, the ropes that connect every atom on Earth to that atom there that forms the balloon or the elephant, they keep fanning out. So they get wider and wider and wider, and that's where we have the acceleration of gravity. That's the explanation. Do you believe it? I don't care if you believe it. Here I'm trying to get you to understand what I'm proposing. Okay, let's get that straight. And yeah, then you can see our dear friend, I can't remember his name now, astronaut that went up there, and he performed the experiment with a feather and a hammer. For those of you who believe that astronauts did get to the moon, okay? And he performed the experiment to confirm Galileo's, theory that two objects should fall at the same time. And the rope model explains that perfectly well with objects, with a rope, okay, with the ropes. So yeah, no problem with what the astronaut did on the moon. As you can see, my Earth also was curved. I'll put that up again. Sorry, flat earthers, but my Earth is curved. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry if it offends you. Okay, okay, well, okay. So how does the Flat Earth Society do gravity? Well, this is gonna be fun. Let's look at flat Earth gravity. Okay, this is what they have in their site. And again, one of the issues, there are several sites for flat Earth, and a lot of people say, every time when you attack them, they say, but you're attacking the wrong site, you're attacking the wrong theory, etc. You get this runaround. So I can only go to the most popular Flat Earth Society, and that's where I got this from, okay? And so the way they see it, the Earth is accelerating upward. So it's not that Newton's apple fell from the tree on his head, it's that the entire Earth came up to meet the apple, okay? That's the way they see it. And they say celestial bodies are all accelerating upward. And the only time that you get this shielding, this shadowing, and that's how they can explain some differences in acceleration, I guess, right? There's another theory that says that there's an infinite plane, that the Earth is not just a circle, what we can say a pancake or a disc. It's this guy says it's an infinite plane. And so we have an irrationality there, and that's why this guy has to be kicked out of science. We don't use the word infinite in science. Only deranged individuals use the word infinite. And if it's a plane and it's infinite, it cuts what in half? What's underneath it? Turtles? I mean, what's above it? This infinite plane simply is a way to elude the questions that are sure to follow. And if he's talking about a plane, he's talking about something that has no thickness whatsoever. That's what a plane is. So he's saying, and he's looking at it sideways, right? Because that's how he's imagining this. He's saying it's infinite and it has no thickness. So what is Mount Everest? Doesn't it stick out of the ground? So what is that infinite plane? What is that nonsense? Anyways, the general idea, or the most popular idea among the flat earthers, is that the Earth moves upwards. It's pushed upwards. And so how is that happening? What's triggering that? And they say dark energy. Now, I wonder where they got that term. I wonder, I thought I heard that somewhere before. I thought it came from general relativity. Anyways, they say the model proposes that the disk of our Earth, our disk, is lifted by dark energy, an unknown form of energy, Okay? That's what these people are proposing. They're saying it's energy, dark energy. Dark, I guess, because we can't see it, we can't prove it, I guess. These people talk about proof, and then they say it's dark. It's so dark we can't see it. Why does everything have to be so dark and so heavy? Anyways, we'll let Mr. Richard Feynman answer that question. He was a Nobel Prize of 1965, and here he is. He says, it is important to realize that in physics today, we have no knowledge of what energy is. And then we have the Wikipedia definition. It says, energy is the quantitative property, blah, 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 blah. A property? An attribute? Is that what energy is? And that's an attribute, a concept is pushing the Earth upwards, a dark concept. And all the others say the same thing. Energy is the capacity, energy is the ability. And you can look up other dictionaries, you'll find similar definitions. Energy is not a physical object. You cannot say the energy, whatever, pushes the Earth up. Okay? Energy is not a physical object. Therefore, what happens? These people don't have a hypothesis. They don't have an assumption. They cannot tell you what is pushing the Earth upwards. Therefore, they have no theory until they can get the assumptions right, they can't even begin to tell us their theory. We don't want to hear it. Don't tell me the earth is going up. Don't tell me the earth is going down. Tell me what physical objects are going to be involved in your movie. You got to make a movie of your theory. And that's what I did. Since they don't do it, I guess I had to do it. So here it goes. Give me a second here. So push this back up. Here it is, okay? This is their version, okay? They say that the flat earth is being pushed up. And before I push it up, I want you to notice that there's a white ring around the earth. Okay, and that's going to come in handy a little later when I talk about, a couple of other things. But that ring, that white ring, that's supposed to be ice. Okay, so think of it as ice, frozen ice. So the earth is bordered or fenced in, right, by a chunk of ice that goes all around. I guess that's Antarctica. In their minds. Okay, so here goes, okay? Keep a close eye, here we go. We're gonna lift the earth, and we have dark matter pushing it up underneath the earth, okay? And this is the best vision I have, a bunch of particles. I don't know what else they mean by dark matter, but I had to illustrate it somehow. So since they don't do it, this is the way I did it, okay? So we have all this dark matter, whatever it is, dark energy, whatever it is, pushing the earth upwards. And you got to think of this as remember, the sun is rolling around the flat disk as well as the moon. This is what's happening with the sun and the moon, okay? On top of that, okay? This is their version, okay? They say that the sun rolls around the perimeter of the earth, so does the moon, okay? So there it is. So this whole thing is moving upwards, okay? You got to think of it as the whole thing moving upwards. I should have maybe illustrated that, but I guess you get the idea anyways. What's happening is the earth is being pushed up by something they call dark energy, which is not a something. And then we have the sun and the earth and all the stars and, all the constellations, whatever. Everything's being pushed. And, one of the issues is, why is it all being pushed upwards? Why is it going up? Why does it go down? Why does it go sideways? Why is it preferentially going up? And it's not only the earth, because the sun has to roll around the earth while the earth is going up, remember? So the sun is going up. And by the way, the sizes of the sun and the moon, just like they say the sun is as small as the moon. Okay, so unbelievable. 21st century, okay. Let's move on here. What else do I want to cover here? Let's go with this. This was another comment that someone made, okay, along the same lines, okay. And he says, how can you have gas pressure without a container? It all comes down to more or less the same thing, because these people have some similar idea. I mean, the flat earth is using particles. They just may not acknowledge it, but everybody out there uses particles. Even the wave theorists use particles, okay? I'm the only guy that doesn't use particles. Everybody else either waves the particles and calls it a wave, or just directly uses particles, either to push, cause pressure, or whatever, but it's all particles. We've only had particles for the last 10,000 years. Starting in the 21st century, we have a new paradigm. That's what this site is about. All atoms in the universe are interconnected, physically interconnected. So now we have a new, something different. Now we have pull for the first time, which is not really pull, it's drifting, but that's a long story. Okay, but anyway, he says, how can you have gas pressure without a container? Sounds like a reasonable question, right? Please demonstrate gas pressure without a container, unless you now believe that the globe Earth is within a physical container. Okay, so let me show the gentleman, okay? Let's kill his ignorance. Okay, here it goes. Here we're going to have gas pressure as he sees it. This is known as the Nebular Hypothesis, okay? It's a bunch of gases out there in the middle of nowhere, and they're rolling around each other like a figure skater. that draws his arms in. This is exactly what the official version of how the solar system came to be. Gases that twirl around, and because of gravity, right? They concentrate in the center. Eventually, at some point, they turn into the sun, and at some point, it ignites. And you say, well, gravity, what is gravity? Because we need to know what gravity is in this context. What do you mean by gravity? Why are those atoms going towards the center? Why don't they just disperse? Because that's what this fellow is saying. He's saying, how can you have this? How can you have pressure? Well, it's not pressure. That's the point. It's gravity. So that's how you prevent atoms from flying out of a center in this case, right? A center of rotation. And under the rope model, it's very simple to understand. Doesn't mean you're going to believe it. It just means you're going to understand what I'm proposing. And here it is. Okay, we're saying all atoms are interconnected. All atoms are physically interconnected. Now we can explain why they're all attracted to a center. They rotate, and because they're all pushing inwards, they eventually condense into the sun. So yeah, I do agree with the establishment's version of how the sun came to be. Okay. Now, do I agree with them on how the Earth came to be? That's where we differ radically, totally different. Okay. And all the rocky planets and all the rocky moons, like take Jupiter's Io or Ganymede. Okay. How did these objects form? In the same way? Now, all of them used to be stars. They formed in the same way that a star forms. That's why they're so round. That's why they're so spherical. And that's why they are differentiated internally. Okay? The Earth is differentiated internally for those who believe in the round Earth, obviously, the globular Earth. The Earth is round because it was formed through gravity. What is gravity? All atoms are interconnected, pushing towards the center. Now we have a physical mechanism. Okay. So yeah, they pushed inwards and they formed this roundish, this spherical Earth. Why is the moon round? Because it used to be a star. Why is Ganymede, which is bigger than the moon, by the way, why is it round? Why is it spherical? Because it used to be a star. All these were formed in the same way. Hydrogen compressing, turns into a star, shines for its lifetime, loses its energy, right? As it's called. We treat it differently in the rope model, but we'll use that word because most people can relate to it. Okay, it gives off radiation, right? Eventually explodes and leaves behind a cold, what is known, a remnant, which is eventually known as a black dwarf. A black dwarf is what our planet is. Our planet is a dead star. That's what it is. And if you look at this, the Earth, how it's constructed, it's got metal, iron in the center, some kind of metals, heavy elements in the center. Then you get silicon, and then eventually you get gases like nitrogen and oxygen at the surface. What have I just described? I described a star. That's what it is. And any planet is like that. Mars is also, it's got an iron core, then it's got silicon and other garbage, in other words, lighter elements, and eventually it has an atmosphere of, in the case of Mars, CO2, carbon dioxide. So it goes from heavy to lighter elements. That's the description of a star. Only a star mechanism can form that. Okay, that's in general the theory. It goes into a lot more detail, but that's an overview. Okay, so yeah, planets and stars and even our beloved Earth, we're all roundish, because gravity works through all atoms being physically interconnected, which is not the official version. That's why the flat earthers are attacking a straw man when they say, oh, space-time and so on. Yeah, in a way you are, because there is another paradigm now. Okay, there is another paradigm, and the paradigm is that all atoms are interconnected. Okay, so we rail against, just like the flat earthers, we rail against general relativity and quantum mechanics. We say that's nonsense. Of course it is, but you have to propose something in exchange. Okay, you got to have a theory that you compare it against. And right now, what are we going to compare it against? The nonsense of the flat Earth, where we have dark energy, whatever that is, pushing the Earth upwards. I mean, you got to be kidding me. You really have to be kidding. Okay, let's move on. Here's another question that someone put, also along the same lines. Okay, let's see if we can move on here. If you are talking about the FlatEarth Society, this shows me that you've never done genuine research at all into the flat Earth realm, you misspell that we do in fact live in. Okay, so we live in a flat Earth, according to that. Okay, we live in a flat Earth. Do I know, did I do any study on the flat Earth? Well, I did a little study. I mean, maybe I missed something, but I think I got the general picture. So let's find out, okay? And we start with some famous flat earthers. Okay, here's a couple of them, okay? We got this gentleman, Nathan Thompson. He's apparently one of the guys that most got into this. He was followed by this guy, Matt Boylan. And then we have someone from my own country, from Argentina, this guy, Irulanducci, okay? And this fellow, all these fellows really, what they are is they make pyramids. They're constructing pyramids. That's what they're doing. They're going out there and recruiting. And yeah, when you want to recruit, you don't present science. What you do is present evidence. And evidence is a no-no in science. We don't present evidence in science because evidence is used to persuade the jury. You're not there to give them an objective mechanism. You're there to try to convince them. And that's what these people do. Now, you know, they're making their money, I guess. You know, they're building their pyramids. That's fine. That's business. You know, that's their problem. I've got no issue with that. People want to follow them. You know, that's their business too. But they're not doing science. They cannot say that what they do is science. What they're doing is recruiting. That's different. See? Here we do science. Here we don't recruit. You believe, you don't believe, we don't care. We're here just to make sure you understand what mechanism we're proposing for gravity, for magnetism, for electricity, for the workings of the atom. That's what we do here. And we compare it against the establishment. Whether you believe or not, that's your problem. But see, this is not what these people do. These people are building pyramids. Okay, but what are these people proposing? What do they stand for? Well, let's find out. To see if, you know, I'm even within the ballpark. You know, here are some of the most famous arguments that they've raised, okay? And these are not all their arguments. I just picked out a few just to give you an overview, okay? They say that the Earth might be flat, or suggest that the Earth is flat, because they can't see ships visually falling off the horizon. Okay, it's an issue of perspective and focus, they claim. You know, the farther it is, you can't see it. But if you had a telescope, you can still see the ship. And that means that, well, I thought it was supposed to fall behind the horizon, and I can see it with my binoculars. Okay, that's one issue. When they're on a balloon or an airplane, they can see downwards. They can see still a flat land and a straight horizon. I like that one. Water of rivers doesn't curve downwards, like, you know, the Nile. Would have to flow uphill to overcome the curvature of the Earth. I like that one. One guy says, several people say, can't feel the motion of the Earth's orbit. In fact, someone raised that issue. And I'm going to tackle that one next, in fact. Says water doesn't fall off the edge of the Earth because there's an ice wall. That ice wall I showed you earlier, serving as a fence or barrier around the edge of the Earth. Someone mentioned, this was this first guy there, Thompson. He said, gravity is nothing more than a theory. Yeah, it's just a theory, you know. I let go of my pen, it falls to the floor. That's just a theory, you know. There is no such thing as gravity. We're still figuring out if it's for real, if it's just a theory, you know. And they claim that moon rocks was it Armstrong, I think it was, took around the Earth, they were just petrified wood. That's the official version of the flat Earth. And I like the one on the right. Satellites are a myth. Why? Because 99% of international data are transmitted through submarine cables for other means. We use high altitude balloons, planes, and drones, towers, antennas, and parabolic reflectors. So now you know how that Morse code is getting to your little cell phone. It's all done by cable. These guys got to be kidding me. 21st century, okay? Yeah. So yeah, they're in the process of recruiting only, and they recruit people who don't know what questions to ask them, don't know how to put them on the spot, don't know, how to put them against the rope and pummel them, especially on definitions and on assumptions. These people don't do definitions. These people don't do assumptions. They never define the word flat, as I discussed last time. If you're going to have a flat earth, begin by defining the word flat. We need to know precisely what the word flat means. How flat is flat? Is it, a sheet of paper? Is it thin as a square, a circle? Is that thin? Like when you put it sideways, there's nothing there? Is that how thin it is? How flat is flat? And then you have, you got to explain Mount Everest or whatever, the Alps, they stick out of the ground. And it sounds very similar to what they have in Mars also, by the way. Very coincidental, they have all these mountains up there. Okay, here's that question that this fellow asked along the same lines that I just mentioned in one of their arguments. He says, explain to me rationally how we live on a spinning globe and feel our senses. None of it. Okay, that we can't feel our senses, I guess he meant. Okay. Well, again, you got to realize how I'm going to answer the question from the rope model. I'm not going to vouch for gravity, for general relativity. I'm not going to vouch for quantum mechanics or string theory, any other of that nonsense, okay? I'm not going to vouch for the electric universe. I'm not going to vouch for the John Chappell Society, for Ken Wheeler, for Eric Dollard, any of these guys, okay? None of them have anything to do with me, okay? So I'm just going to give you the rope model, how we explain it here, okay? Here it is, okay? Here we go. Okay, this is the model in a nutshell, okay? On the left-hand side, we have the differences between mathematical physics, discrete particles, and the rope model. All atoms are interconnected. They're physically tied to each other. What connects them is a rope, as you can see on the bottom left. Bottom left. There's a rope there, two twined threads. They're DNA-like threads. They're twined around each other. Those threads form the atoms that are going to be pumping up and down. They're going to expand and contract, consistent with quantum jump, and by doing so, they torque the rope. Light, it consists of a torsion along a pair of twined threads. On the right-hand side, we have the summary for gravity. We have that as an object approaches another, since all atoms of one object are connected to all atoms of the other, as they come together, the ropes fan out, and this explains the acceleration of gravity. Okay? So, what does this have to do with the question this gentleman asked? Well, let's put the question back up there. Here it is. Explain to me rationally how we live on a spinning globe. Why don't we fly out? In other words, that's what he's asking. Okay, let's find out. If all atoms are connected, okay. Let me put this in the right place. Here's a man standing on Earth, okay? Here's the Earth spinning, right? Why doesn't he get shot out of the Earth? Well, very simple, very, very simple. The man, every atom in his body is connected to every atom on Earth. That's why he doesn't fly out, because we're all tied to the Earth. And you say, well, is that possible? What are you saying, Bill? I don't feel tied to anything. Well, yeah, every atom in your body is connected to every atom on Earth. And you say, well, where'd you get this, Bill? Did you invent this? No. How about if we put some authority, since people believe in authority? We'll put Mr. Richard Muller. He's a professor at Berkeley. And he says, for example, if you have the earth, there's a big mass here, and you have you with your little mass here. Every atom on earth is pulling on every atom of you. Now, what part did you not understand? Every atom on earth is pulling on every atom of you. You're also pulling on it. The amazing thing about gravity is that it goes right through things. Now, how else are you going to simulate that if not that every atom in the earth is connected to every atom of you? Please explain. And yeah, you can't. And for sure you cannot explain it with a flat earth model with dark energy pushing on the earth from the bottom, I guess above the turtles. No. What you have is every atom in your body is connected to everything else. My atoms right now are connected to you right through the walls of my house. Okay? Because the atom that's in the middle of my wall, 10 centimeters inwards, okay? That atom is also pulling on me. And it's pulling right through the others. Now, please explain that. Because walls attract walls. We know this through the Cavendish experiment that, the torsion balance, they have two weights, they put two more weights, and then that thing moves. What is that? Spirits? And again, the flat earthers, they complain against that. They have their, all these excuses. That's all they are, really. They have to explain that phenomenon. And, they have all these, these excuses. They try to skirt the issues. They never explain. They cannot tell you because they don't know. They're simply ignorant people. And they don't even know the foundations of physics. That first of all, you need a physical object. And they do their physics without objects. And they do their physics without definitions. So we can't follow what they're saying because they never define any word. They have to begin with a long list of words that have to be defined so we can follow their presentation. And they should not be in the business of criticizing because a scientist is not someone who opposes. A scientist is someone who proposes. Scientist is someone who tells you how something happened objectively, a mechanism. A physicist I'm referring to, right? And he's not a critic. I mean, a critic is okay, but a critic is not a scientist. I criticize the establishment as well. I criticize space-time. I criticize quantum mechanics. That doesn't make me a scientist. The scientist in me is the guy who comes and says, let me tell you how this universe works. And I tell you, I give you a mechanism that's objective. You look at it, you understand it. That's where science ends. What continues now is religion. Whether you believe in it, whether I proved it to you, that's religion. Whether you like the evidence, there's always a tendency to present evidence. There's always a tendency to try to convince people. It's human nature. But we have to distinguish that part as religion, and the part of science is only the part where you explain objectively the mechanism. That's science. That's the part of physics. The rest is religion. Okay, let's make sure we separate one from the other. Okay, and by the way, even in the case of particles, people who talk about waves, particles, whatever, they have to be interconnected. I mean, how are you going to produce this? Here's the scenario for you, okay? You got this ball bouncing up and down, okay? What's pulling it up? What's pulling it down? What's pushing it up? What's pushing it down? Whether you use pull or push, I don't care. Why is it going up and down? Because that's what a wave is. Here's a better picture of a wave. Let's see if I can put it up there. If I can find it. Here it is. Okay, here you have the wave. You have Maxwell's wave up top, which is not a wave, because what you're staring at the top, the blue and yellowish, those are vectors. Those are mathematical vectors. All they have, each one of those arrows just has magnitude and direction. And what the mathematicians have done is turn it into a physical object, or led you to believe that you're staring at a physical object. It is not. That's the weirdest thing that the mathematicians ever invented. The transverse wave. What is that? What is that nonsense? What is that idiocy that Maxwell came up with? That's what Maxwell did, was mathematically describe, and that he did it with an equation. To turn that equation into this ridiculous thing that the mathematicians show there, a bunch of vectors moving across your screen. What is that idiocy? But at the bottom you see particles. And the only way they're going to move up and down like they do is if they're all connected. As you can see, they're all connected. If they're not connected, there's no way you can explain how that particle went up or down. Not rationally, at least. And not in a smooth fashion as a transverse wave is supposed to be moving. Okay? So let's get it straight. Physics is about explaining something rationally. You cannot explain anything rationally in physics, the invisible world, with particles. And if waves are made of particles, well, that's the end of waves as well. There is no physical object called wave. Wave is what particles do, okay? Or a bunch of them do. So yeah, that's the end of particles, and that's the end of waves. We have to start brainstorming something new in the 21st century. We can't continue on with waves and particles and not being able to answer something as simple as how a magnet attracts another. Okay, little magnet there. Okay, hope you see it. You know, that's what we have to explain. And they can't explain something as simple as that. They cannot explain the mechanism, the physical mechanism. They admit, they say, look, we don't understand how any of that works. We can describe it mathematically. Who cares? That's not physics. That's mathematical physics, which they have turned into physics and into science. Okay? Okay. Here's just to show you how the moon goes around the sun, the earth, I'm sorry. Okay, that's why it doesn't leave the solar system. Every atom on the moon that comprises the moon is connected to every atom that comprises the earth. Okay, and one of the things that got me about this guy's comment, where is it? Yeah, it's this one here. Another fellow who put a comment, and he said the following, and this one really got me. Okay. And he said, I love all your work, but you really make me think that you are a possible disinfo-controlled opposition agent against the flat earth. My God. Here are the conspiracies that these people have. Okay, let's go over that first before I answer that question. Earth surrounded by an ice wall, and they guard it. The flat earth believes that there's militaries or whoever down there in the Antarctica, all around the earth, because Antarctica, remembers that ring that surrounds the earth, and it's all guarded by military people and who knows what, and you can't travel to the edge of the earth because of that. And that same wall of ice is what prevents the water from dribbling out of the earth. That's why we still have oceans. Okay, we have the Pacific Ocean, all that, because we have this wall of ice protecting us. Okay, and you can't get past that wall of ice because the military won't let you. Then we have the another conspiracy idea here. The spherical earth was not devised by man, but devised by the devil, as one guy says, to deceive everyone. In Hebrew, nasa means deceive, to deceive. And one translator says, no, who knows, apparently, I don't know, this, I just got it from one translator there, says, no, nasa means to lift, not to deceive, in Hebrew, okay? And this guy, I think this came out of one of these two flat earthers there that I mentioned earlier. People such as Copernicus, Kepler, and Newton, who believed in spherical earth, belonged to religion. Okay, so these were all religious people essentially, and so they had an agenda. That's essentially the idea. NASA is a fraudulent organization. This is their main point. Okay, that space exploration is a fake. NASA never sent rockets into space. Need to maintain the lie alive to keep the program in place and the funds coming. The deception has to do with this and not with the flat earth theory. What they're saying is that mission controllers assume that the earth is spherical. In other words, you're not supposed to think that NASA is really after these guys or doing something to them because they're flat earthers. No, the fakery, the deception comes that NASA is protecting their interests and doesn't want you to know that they're not really sending rockets into space. And that's where the deception comes in. So any photograph, supposedly photograph of the Earth from the moon or from some satellite or from someplace out there, is not a true picture of the Earth. Aside from the fact that the way I see it, if they take a picture of the Earth and bring it down here, they'll say, "Oh, see, I told you it's flat. See, all I see is a disc." On the photograph, right? You would have to, I guess, film it all around, and they probably would have some counter argument to that as well. Okay. Flat Earth infiltrated by government intel agents and intel agencies. They claim that, like the 9/11, what is it? The 9/11 truthers and all these people, they're always infiltrated, Ku Klux Klan and so on. They're always infiltrated by the government. That's true. And so these people think that Flat Earth is not giving all the Flat Earth organizations are not giving you the real theory because they've been infiltrated, taken over, and a lot of the disinformers are within the Flat Earth Society. That's their argument. That's another conspiracy theory they have. And the only one I agree with them a little bit is that the Earth is run by psychopaths and pedophiles. So I might want to agree with them. And so you might ask, well, Bill, are you so naive to believe that there are no conspiracies? Okay, so let's kill that one. Okay, let's make sure people don't confuse me with some government agent, disinformation agent. Let me go over. I do a lot of history. I love history, and unfortunately for me, it's a drug. It's a drug. It goes into my veins. I really stay away from history because every time I grab a history book, I don't stop until I finish it. And I do a lot of history reading. I do a lot of research in history as well. I don't present history on the internet, right? But I do a lot of history. And today is History Day. I'm going to do a little history here, only because it's got to do with this conspiracy theory that these people are raising. And they're accusing me of being a disinformation agent. Yes, I was one time associated with the CIA, with the FBI, with intelligence services like the Savak of Iran and the G2 of Cuba, KGB. Yeah, I was associated. I had some relations with all these organizations. Okay, up front. Does that make me a disinformation agent right now? Well, let me tell you a little story here. This is what I think about some current day today. Contemporary crimes that have been committed and who I think did them. Okay, let's go with some of the international ones first. Okay, here we have some murders. We have a murder of Mrs. Princess Diana, right? I think the people on the right of her over there, I think those were the murders. Here we have Alexander Litvinenko. He was poisoned by, what is it? Some nuclear stuff, okay? And I think the murderer is the guy on the right there. This other fellow, Kim Jong-nam, he was poisoned in a different way. They sprayed something in his face. I think the murderer was the guy on the right there. And on the bottom we have Jamal Khashoggi. He was a newsman. And I think the murderer is the guy on the right. Now, the ones that are marked murderers, I don't think they were the ones who took the gun or the knife or whatever and killed them. No. They hired someone to do it, or they had someone do it for whatever reasons. Maybe they held one of their family members hostage, or maybe they paid them, or maybe the person who did it out of loyalty, right? But that's why it's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy because it involves at least two people. Okay. Now, does that mean you believe what I just showed you? No, everybody's got his own idea. Everybody's got his own biases. Everybody's got his own idea of, who could have done this and that. Some people believe in this conspiracy, others believe in that conspiracy, right? But let me continue so that I want to make sure that we clean this up, okay? I don't want people talking nonsense behind my back, okay? Here's a few conspiracies, okay? I believe that Lincoln was shot by John Wilkes Booth, but the man behind the gun, the guy who planned it all, was Edwin Stanton, Secretary of War, okay, of Lincoln's Secretary of War. Okay, it's a long story, but that's who I believe did it. James Garfield, I think he was shot by Charles Guiteau, who was a stalwart, by the way. But the guy who I think masterminded it, Roscoe Conklin, he didn't do it for a coup d'etat. He did it for vengeance. He had a axe to grind against James Garfield. So did Charles Guiteau, by the way. Sinking of the U.S. Maine in Havana Harbor, well, it came in handy to justify the war against Spain. Spain lost Philippines, Guam, Cuba, lost everything, almost all its possessions, remaining possessions abroad. William McKinley, he was shot by Leon Czolgosz. Was there a conspiracy? No, I don't think there was. And I do a lot of research on all this stuff. I really go in depth. I'm not. It's not like I go lightly over these things. I really take my time in investigating these things. These are my conclusions. You don't have to agree. I'm just telling you what my conclusions are. And I'm saying Leon Czolgosz, he was an anarchist. I think he's one of those few lone gunmen that we had in history, in U.S. history, right? So as you can see, I think these were all conspiracies. So yeah, I do believe in some conspiracies. I don't believe in all of them, but I do believe in some of them. Here's a couple more. I want to make sure that I clean this up, that everybody's aware where I stand. Okay. Sinking of the Lusitania, Germany had warned the United States and the American people to put an ad in the newspaper to make sure nobody took trips on ships that carried weapons and other things to help England. Lusitania it's called RMS because it's a mailing ship, and this mailing ship carried a little more than mail, and so the Germans sunk it with a lot of losses of life. And I don't know if you know, but Wilson ran on a ticket in 1916 saying that he kept us out of war. As soon as he was elected, he put the United States into war. Okay, Warren G. Harding, I think he was murdered by his wife, Florence Harding. Why do I believe that? Well, he was involved in the Teapot Dome scandal. That's a long story. But why do I suspect Florence? Because she's the one that forbid that an autopsy be done on Warren after 3 days that he was poisoned. That's what I think. And yeah, I don't buy nonsense so easy. And so when there's something like that, I tend to think the person is guilty until she can prove that she's innocent. There was no reason not to do an autopsy on Warren G. Harding. Anton Cermak, he was shot down by that fellow, Giuseppe Zangara. And the bullet was apparently intended for FDR. Whether this was the mafia, because this guy is an Italian, remember. Could have been recruited by the mafia. This guy said he tried to shoot FDR. He instead ended up shooting Cernak because a woman moved his arm just when he shot. So he killed the wrong guy, supposedly. Maybe he did want to kill Cernak because the mafia really wanted to get Cermak out of there. So it's very likely that maybe he did kill the right guy. But conspiracy, yeah, maybe, possible. I have no conclusions on that. Pearl Harbor, even to this day, lots of people believe it was planned. In other words, they knew the Japanese were coming and that they were going to attack. They didn't do anything about it because they really wanted to get into the war. Okay, and today it's used as a battle cry. They say, oh, it's like another Pearl Harbor. So yeah, I believe that that's my conclusion, that Pearl Harbor was one of those things that, yeah, come on over, kill our guys so we can get into the war, that kind of thing. And the Japanese, I think it was Tojo, who said, we have awakened a sleeping giant. Okay? And here's a couple more. Here we have the most famous of the last 60 years, maybe, the killing of JFK. His brother, Robert, 5 years later, Martin Luther King also in 68. So those two were killed in 68. And we have also Mrs. Madeline Monroe. And yeah, a lot of stuff is fishy. The car was immediately refurbished. You have the magic bullet. You have the killing of Oswald, and then this saying on camera that look at the guys above, the people who put me into this situation, and so on. So yeah, anyone who believes otherwise, I think he's got a big problem. But anyways, a lot of people have different beliefs, and they have different ideas of how, whether these are conspiracies or not. Some of them simply love their country so much or are unwilling to believe that the government would do such things, and they refuse to believe these things. Okay. Let's see, we can put a couple more here. Here's another famous one done recently. Okay, do I believe it? Yeah, I made several videos on this. A lot of fake stuff. They found a passport, they found bandanas, they found knives, they found C.C. Lyle's driver's license, but they couldn't find, the black boxes. None of the black boxes. A couple that they found, they made sure that the transcripts said what they needed to put a couple of these other guys away, especially Mr. Mohammed at the bottom, okay? And so, yeah, I believe this was done by the U.S. government. So obviously, you can call me, I guess, a conspiracist. And then the final ones here, we have, I just wrote a paper a short while ago on these two bozos, which I say are U.S. government intelligence operations. Okay, and that's Mr. Assange, who supposedly raped these two girls, one of which was a CIA agent working in Cuba for the Cuban American Foundation. Okay, we have Mr. Snowden, who relies on WikiLeaks. Okay, for his help with lawyers and so on. And yes, Rupert Murdoch always gives them the microphone, and so they are able to say anything they want, and people are supposed to believe it. And who are going to believe it? Well, the people who think that these people are for real. Those are, see, what the United States, as far as I'm concerned, has done is put these guys in charge of the opposition. They tell you what to believe today. So, what can we say? Am I a disinformation agent? Well, I don't think I would be saying any of this if, I think most people would label me as a conspiracist. That's the word that's used. And yeah, I have my beliefs. I did my research. I researched quite a bit, these subjects quite a bit, each one of them, and several others, those are my beliefs. And you may believe differently. Fine. But then the question is, if I have these ideas about who did what, about these conspiracies, does this mean that I can translate directly this into science? In other words, are there conspiracies in science, in physics? Okay, let's find out. These are the most popular conspiracies in physics, okay, the ones that you see out there. You have Roswell, that the Martians came and the United States government is holding them and analyzing, maybe mummified them, who knows what. You have the crop circles, done by ETs for sure. Covered that a couple weeks ago, where I showed that it was done by humans, very easily done. Man on the moon, did humans ever go to the moon? That's a favorite one of the Flatearthers, especially those, you can see that in the center there. They claim that man never went to the moon. The Tesla guys, Electric Universe, usually, not all of them, but a lot of people believe that, the FBI went through his pockets when he died at the hotel, okay? And went through his stuff to see what invention he had in his pockets. Pyramids, people who look at history and they say, oh, the pyramids were made by, these Martians or whatever that visited us in the past. And then we have all these celebrities of physics, and are they keeping us out? Are they in a conspiracy to keep all dissidents out of the system? Well, I can tell you only, again, I'll give you only my opinion, my version. Now, you believe what you want. I'm saying that there is no conspiracy, okay? Not in science. These people, are they keeping us out? Are they keeping me out? No, it's the way, this is my version, okay? It's the way the system developed. It's how the system evolved. We start maybe with Newton, just to make it short, 400 years ago. Newton, Huygens, maybe even Galileo, Gassendi, all these people. They created, they were trying to arrive at how this universe works. So they started figuring out, they threw ideas, theories, assumptions, okay? And that worked its way to where we are today. Worked its way to where we are today. And a lot of these people, they go to the universities, they study physics, they get a degree. Who gives them the degree? Well, the guy from the previous generation, the professor. So where did he get it? Well, he got it from his professor, the generation earlier, and so on down the line. So it evolved in this direction. And so I think a lot of these people really believe in what they say. They are on record saying that they don't understand how this universe works. They don't understand how quantum does its thing. How can they possibly understand how quantum does its thing if they're saying, like for the slit experiment, that a particle can be at two places at once? Obviously, they don't understand. That's the explanation they give, but they say, well, yeah, I have to give you some kind of physical interpretation. That's the physical interpretation I give you because that's not important. What's important for us are the equations. We measure, we can describe, we put it in an equation. That's science. And how did Mother Nature do the trick? Oh, we don't know. Particles at two places at once. Mother Nature's so weird. God works in mysterious ways. So, they don't know how this universe works. They don't know how gravity works out there. They say space-time, and they draw the fishnet. And you say, are you really saying that the Earth goes around the fishnet, the gravity well that formed by the mass of the sun weighing down this fishnet? That's an analogy. You're not supposed to take the analogy so seriously, so literally. So what is the explanation? if I don't take it literally, what was the analogy for? And they say, well, this is the equation. The equation says that, this, and this gives us the idea that there's a warpage in space, and that's things roll around warpage. Gravity is geometry. The geometry caused by mass. That's the explanation. What is mass? A concept. It's like saying the weight of the elephant bent love, because we're bending concepts here. One concept bending another concept. So the weight of the elephant. And we got rid of the elephant 2 hours ago. All we have is his weight. His 6 tons. Now we're going to put 6 tons on love, and love warps. That's the explanation that we have. And the earth rolls around love. And you say, well, the earth really rolls around love after 6 tons weighed it down? It's an analogy. You're not supposed to take it so literally. So what have we learned? What have we learned about how Mother Nature or Father Universe does his stuff in the cosmos? We haven't learned anything. That's the issue. The issue is that we don't have rational explanations, and these people don't care about having qualitative, physical interpretations. Okay, last one. Just to end it up, here we have the famous conspiracies theorists, the one that I put in my video icon there as the front page. All these people, if you go to their sites, if you go to the Electric Universe, Walt Thornhill's Electric Universe, you go to Nassim's site, him a little less than the others, but still the same. You go to Ken Wheeler or David D. Hilster, all these people, you'll find conspiracy in there. Not that they all harp so heavily on conspiracy, but they all have elements of conspiracies in there, in their bitch against the establishment. Oh, we would be able to do this if it weren't that the establishment is after us, if they wouldn't censor us, okay? So all these people, the Flat Earthers are the worst ones, probably worst violators. They see conspiracy everywhere. And again, we should not confuse the conspiracies of politics with the conspiracies of so-called physics, Because in physics, we don't care about conspiracies. In physics, you have to explain a mechanism. That's the part of physics. The conspiracy part, that's politics. That's religion. You can say, oh, the government's preventing me from publishing. Okay, fine. Or the physics guild, the mathematical physics guild is preventing me from publishing my paper. Well, again, the way I see it, things evolved in such a way that these people formed the guild. Okay, it's called the Mathematical Physics Guild. Okay, they call it physics, and it has nothing to do with physics, but they form a guild and they control the publishing world. So now, if you want to publish like I try to publish, I want to publish in a respectable journal, one that has, quite a few readers, and I sent stuff to Nature, I sent stuff to Science Magazine, and they won't publish. They send you that nice, beautiful note saying, well, we regret to inform you that editorial space is limited. So, I had to publish elsewhere. And I did. I was able to publish my stuff in other places. I published one a paper in China, another one in Canada. I had to publish in other places. But these places don't have the circulation that places like Nature and Science have. And you say, they're conspiring against me. No, it's not that they're conspiring. What it is they built their guild, and what they do is math. What they do is equations. You don't have to take my word for it. Just go in there and look at any paper published today. It's all got equations. You won't see a single picture because they're not explaining a mechanism. They're not giving you a movie where you can see, how things move and what the mechanism is. They don't care about that. They care about equations. They care about measurement. How precise was your measurement? Okay, what equation do you have? What new law? Equation is law. What new law have you discovered of the universe? That's where you get the Nobel Prizes. And if you come in there and say, quantum is irrational, how can you say that a particle can be at two places at once? They'll say, yeah, we know. And that's the answer you get. So is there a conspiracy? No, it's just the way their guild works. And it's a tightly controlled guild, okay? Because of self-interest. You call that a conspiracy? Well, maybe you can call it a conspiracy. I think it's just the way things evolved. The only way to beat that is in parallel, create a new guild that deals with physics. That's one issue. The other one I want to end with, I'm a little over my time, but the other one I want to say is that I love the Flat Earthers. I'll tell you why. The irony of things. I wish they were successful. I think they're idiots. They're bigger idiots than the establishment. They really are. They're really loonies. But why do I like them? I like them because they're having success. They're having success. Why? Because they're recruiting a lot of ignorant people. This is a grassroots movement, and they're having some level of success. In fact, I think they're having a little more success than some of these other groups like the Electric Universe or Chappell Society. They're having a little more success than they are. And the way they're doing it is, the way Amway does it or the way Avon does it. You don't go out there to sell product. You go out there to recruit sellers. That's how you do it. So you convince someone, that guy convinces two others, and that guy convinces four others, and you build your pyramid. Okay? That's what they're doing. And it just might work. Just might work. And I would love, above all, if I had a choice, I'd rather have the Flat Earthers destroy mathematical physics so that all those people who always believed and gawked at space-time, at Big Bang, at dark matter, at particles at two places at once. Can you imagine if that were to fall flat on its face and people were to figure out that, oh, look, the universe is really, the earth is really flat. Look at all these people who believe in the flat earth. Oh, I wish them luck. I really wish them, I wish they would overthrow mathematical physics just to show people like, Brian Greene and Michio Kaku and Neil deGrasse Tyson. I want to see those people destroyed. So if we can get the flat earth to win over them, oh man, I would believe in God again. With that, I'll see you next time, okay? I hope you have a good weekend. Bye-bye.